Joy 99.7 FM.
We bring you joy on the airways. We bring you joy, lighting up your night. Cool your day. So when you feel low, all you gotta do is turn on the power on your radio. Tune in, get joy in stereo.
Hello, good afternoon, and welcome to the Midday News. The news is live on Joy 99.7 in Accra, on Love 99.5 in Kumasi, and on myjoyonline.com. We're also live in all 16 regions of Ghana on Radio Sangmaliwa, Jubilee Radio Keta, and Victory Aflao. We're also live on X Spaces and Facebook. The Midday News is supported by Petrosol, your clean fuel in full quantity. Petrosol, always a delightful experience. Coming up this afternoon, Office of the Special Prosecutor names former President John Dramani Mahama as government official 1 in the controversial Airbus scandal.
As government official 1 by the UK court and individual 1 by the US court is John Dramani Mahama.
We have the latest as Special Prosecutor Kisia Jabing exonerates the former president and all named individuals in the scandal. Also this afternoon, Minority in Parliament takes Majority Leader Alexander Fenyumarking over what he terms as his unilateral decision to trigger a recall of Parliament. We'll hear from Minority Chief Whip Kwame Governs Abuja, who cautions that the majority will have an arduous task of rallying all their members to make the quorum for business. Also afternoon, government unveils plans to end chronic borrowing after calls for a roadmap to manage Ghana's escalating debt crisis, including a proposal to have an independent fiscal council.
Now, we also want to have a very strong fiscal council. It's going to have a team of competent individuals, people that are able to stand with all pressures, and the key we are putting is their independence.
But economists believe a lean government and expenditure check is the way to manage our debt for the long term.
We should make some ministries, collapse some agencies, some development authorities we have established in the last 8 years or so. So let's progressively shrink governance costs.
Also coming up this afternoon is sports.
Ghana's participation at the Olympic Games has ended in disappointment as the men's relay team have been disqualified.
Well, we'll bring you details of that later in the bulletin, and much later the Ghana Chamber of Construction punches holes into Dr. Baumia's fresh commitment to pump 3% of Ghana's GDP into the private sector towards infrastructural development if elected president.
Currently, the funding gap is about $12 billion. So it's not something that we can continue to put on government budget and still have that optimal level of road construction.
These are more coming up with me, Maame, Nyamekye, Thompson. Stay for details. This afternoon, the Office of the Special Prosecutor has named former President John Dramani Mahama as the government official 1 in the controversial Airbus scandal. Over the last 4 years, the Anti-Corruption Agency has been carrying out an independent probe in respect of alleged bribery by Airbus SE, a European multinational aerospace corporation, regarding the sale and purchase of military aircraft for the Republic. Although a mutual investigation to unmask Ghanaian officials complicit in the deal stalled between UK authorities and his office. Special Prosecutor Kissie Jabin says his independent probe has uncovered the identity of the government official one subject to investigations was John Dramani Mahama, coupled with his brother who has dual citizenship in the UK.
The OSP established, through independent inquiry, the identity of the subjects of the investigation, though the UK and US courts muffled their identities. We deem it necessary to reveal the identity of some of the individuals owing to the very heightened public interest in the fact that the conduct of Airbus was held by the UK and US courts to be aimed at courting undue favor and advantage from Ghanaian public officials and an elected high government official in the sale of C-29 aircraft to Ghana, and the persons held to be closely associated with or the conduit of the courting of such undue favor and advantage. And also, in light of the occurrences in the context of the investigative and prosecutorial actions of the Ghanaian and UK authorities in the past 4.5 years. So, the OSP confirms the identity of the following individuals. Government Official 1, Individual 1. The individual described as Government Official 1 by the UK court and Individual 1 by the US court is John Dramani Mahama. He is a citizen of Ghana. He was the Vice President of Ghana from 7 January 2009 to 24 July 2012. He was the President of Ghana from 24 July 2012 to 7 January 2017. His tenure of office as the Vice President of Ghana coincided with the time frame of the UK and US investigation of the first Airbus campaign for the sale of 2 C-295 aircraft to Ghana. His term of office as a President of Ghana occurred during the UK and US investigation time frame of the second Airbus campaign for the sale of 1 C-29 aircraft to Ghana.
And you heard the Special Prosecutor Kissie Jabin giving us details of the Airbus case. Well, my colleague Samuel Imbura is at the office of the Special Prosecutor, joining me with more details on this. Samuel, the OSP reveals that it took 4 years to make his findings because the process stalled at a point. What contributed to this?
Well, at a point, getting the identities of the individuals named in the US and the UK courts was actually difficult because they had the right to protect the individuals that were standing trial. So that's what the OSP or the Special Prosecutor referenced as one of the reasons that actually stalled this particular investigation.
Okay, so the Office of the Special Prosecutor, or the Special Prosecutor, says his arrival at the conclusion that John Mahama, is Government Official 1, is independent of UK and US authorities. So what proof did he adduce to this to this evidence?
Yes, the Special Prosecutor indicated that the UK and the US courts were actually the foundation for their investigations, but he also made a point that has to do with the laws in the US and the UK that constitute criminality and corruption and bribery allegations. So with the jurisprudence or the legal jurisprudence here, what they consider as the criminal offenses may not necessarily be the same in Ghana. So looking at the laws that we have in Ghana and the evidence available, they were not able to deduce that particular fact that they were actually culpable in those acts.
So, Samuel, what will happen to John Mahama? Will he be prosecuted?
So, at the moment, the Special Prosecutor has indicated that the evidence, what they have done so far, the investigations have pointed out that there's no evidence that points out to John Mahama involved in any bribe taking or the influence of his brother in the purchase of this particular aircraft that has become a global controversy. So what it means is that John Mahama has been exonerated of all charges or from all charges by the Special Prosecutor according to their investigations.
While the accepted facts in the two foreign jurisdictions are that the employees of Airbus designed the payments to the intermediaries as bribes intended to court favor with Ghanaian public officials, especially ex-President John Dramani Mahama. On the other hand, the intermediaries appeared to expect and receive the payments as their legitimate expectation under an arrangement of success-based commissions for the sale of the military transport aircraft to the government of Ghana. And their actions, in whichever way viewed, were calculated as businessmen expecting their lawful paychecks and not as conduits of a bribery scheme. The concoction of a plan by senior leadership in SMO International and the Defense and Space Division of Airbus to deliberately circumvent Airbus compliance rules by substituting Company D, or the company owned by Consultant 4 and Consultant 5, with Spanish Intermediary 8, or Organization 1, to ensure payments to Foster and his associates, though wrongful and deceptive, was entirely an internal matter for Airbus in respect of its disciplinary regulations and code of ethics. It does not amount to the payment of bribes to court favor with Ghanaian public officials in the reckoning of Ghanaian law. It is a case of the employees of Airbus deceiving Airbus. Neither does the short declaration by Airbus to the Spanish Export Credit Agency and Airbus's non-declaration in the context of the US ITAR. Consequently, the OSP has no evidentiary basis upon which to conclude that Samuel Adam Foster, also known as Samuel Adam Mahama, Philip Sean Middlemas, and Leanne Sarah Davis acted as conduits of bribery between the employees of Airbus and former President John Dramani Mahama or any other public official.
So you heard there the special prosecutor, Kisi Ejabeng, exonerating John Mahama. And moving on, the minority in Parliament is taking on Majority Leader Alexander Fenyumarking for unilaterally triggering the standing orders for a recall of Parliament. Already, Speaker of the House, Alban Sumana Gbagban, has stated he was granting the request for all members of Parliament to return from recess for an emergency session on Tuesday, September 3. This decision, he says, stems from a petition from Majority Leader Alexander Fenyumarking, who criticized his indefinite adjournment of the session on July 30. Samuel Nimbora has excerpts of a statement from the Speaker clarifying why he adjourned sitting.
The decision to adjourn the House indefinitely on 30th July 2024, according to the Speaker, was not made in isolation. He says this date was informed by the parliamentary calendar of the 4th session of the 8th Parliament, which calls on Parliament to adjourn at the end of the month of July. This guide, according to the Speaker, was discussed on several occasions at pre-sitting meetings of the Speaker and leaders and agreed to weeks before the 30th of July 2024, as the official reports, voice and video recordings of proceedings of the House will clearly demonstrate. The Speaker says he consistently communicated to the House the agreed adjournment date throughout the meeting. The adjournment was neither sudden nor unilateral in this regard, as evidenced by the contents of the official reports on seat 11th, 25th and 26th of July 2024. He also cited IT for the reason for the adjournment. He says for this purpose that the House prioritized some agenda items, and he committed to sit late hours till midnight to ensure that all the prioritized businesses were completed before the House adjourned indefinitely on the agreed date. That was on the 30th of July 2024. He says this was particularly so because in the last week to the adjournment, both deputy speakers had to unavoidably absent from the jurisdiction and had to sit throughout the sittings as captured by the official reports. Yes, the Speaker says a careful review of the matters outlined in the request reveals that they do not meet the threshold set by Article 112. Most of the issues, including the $250 million IDA financing agreement, were already tabled before the House prior to the adjournment on 30th July 2024. It says the fact that these matters were already under consideration by Parliament and in the case of the IDA financing agreement were even subjected to debate and rejected undermines the essence of the request for a recall. Indeed, the Speaker says several of the bills listed on the request are bills that are still under consideration at committee levels. It says the official reports on 30th July show the unwillingness of even members of the majority side to transact the same business.
And you heard the excerpts of a response from the Speaker to the Majority Leader, Alexander Fenyumarking. The minority in Parliament is expressing displeasure over what they term as a unilateral move, Alexander Fenyumarking, to recall the House, knowing very well the scheduled period for the House to reconvene. Minority Chief Whip Kwame Agbavan-Sakwa says, although the House will reconvene, the majority will have an arduous task of meeting the quorum to commence business of the day.
recent. So I was surprised at the reaction of the majority leader, and I didn't think the way he carried out the recall was in good faith. It was a needless reaction, and if I see a list of universities to be established, tax waivers, how are these ones emergency situations?
Well, joining me on the lines on this particular issue is Majority Chief Whip Frank Anadompre. We're grateful for your time on the Midday News. So the minority describing your move of a recall as unusual. Do you know that the majority leader sought for a broad consensus before sending this petition to the Speaker?
Well, first of all, as you do know, the majority leader will not, out of the blue, put in a request for a recall. It stands to reason that he's engaged extensively with not just the leadership, the extended leadership of the majority caucus. So we are in tune and we are totally in support. I'm not surprised at the reaction from the minority chief, my friend. That has been their position from day one, so it is not surprising. There's a tall list of businesses to be prosecuted. Amongst them is the IDA, a number of bills, not necessarily at the committee level, a number, I think the EPA and the Social Protection Bill, which are all very important. They've gone out of the committee level. Some of them are the second reading, where we are just basically looking at the principles. And then for the EPA, for instance, it's a very, very important bill that we have to pass. And we are almost done at the consideration, at the second reading, I should say. So there are a number of businesses that we have to prosecute. Suffice it to say that, when we get back, then we are almost heading towards election. So this is a very good opportunity for us to be able to dispense of this critical business, government business, before we get to the penultimate meeting. So this recall is important. I am not surprised. The Speaker more or less acceded to our call and has scheduled a meeting. So I don't think this is a matter that we have to stretch overly. There are businesses to be prosecuted, very, very important businesses as IEA have items above. And so I disagree with my colleague, the Honorable Kwame, and I think that we should all find a way of dealing with this matter. Don't forget, we've also scheduled to vet the Supreme Court nominees as nominated by the President. So there's a lot we have to do. Yes, I can agree with them that, we all sounded a bit exhausted and we needed some respite, which I think is good. We've gone on break fleetingly. So that's fine, but the recall is important and we are happy that the Speaker has responded, has given some date that we can have a scheduled meeting and engagement to dispense of this critical government business.
Right, Mr. Dompre, but there's particular concern about the IDA loan, for instance. This was rejected by your side of the House. It's still
No, that's not true. That's not true. I won't allow you to proceed further.
No,
that IDA loan was not rejected.
No. So what I need to know is that why are you still insistent on getting this loan passed, by the way?
No, I don't understand the question. It's important. It's an important IDA over the years. If you know the history, IDA is a concessionary loan. It's very important for the economy. For anybody to say it was rejected is not the truth. It was a consensus report. You can refer, get a copy of the report and read. The conclusion of the report is that it was a consensus. It wasn't a majority decision. It was a consensus report. Question was put, and the Speaker put it on hold, that we should return for us to deal with it. It was not rejected, emphasis mine. It was not rejected. It was a consensus report by the Finance Committee. Both sides of the House agreed on the reports on the IDA being taken. But your question is very important. This is very important for the stability of the economy and also to hold it to the economy. And it is not just the IDA. I've also mentioned the EPA Act. I've also mentioned the Social Protection Act, which are all Social Protection Bill and the EPA bill, which are all very, very, very important bills that we must pass because they have time constraint.
Your point has been made clear, but still on this IDA loan, before you go briefly, there was an issue about $90 million that has been, more than $90 million that had been earmarked for consultation, for which there were issues raised. What will be different this time around when this loan comes up again in the House?
Well, I cannot jump the gun, but let me also educate you more or less on these matters. Such facilities have come time and again, and there are often concerns. And these concerns sometimes enable us to defer consideration or allow further consultation or bring in some experts to elucidate on it, so to speak. So it is not out of the blue, and let nobody read any wrong motive or meanings into it. Yes, it was a matter that was flagged, and then we asked for more details into it. It is not out of the ordinary.
Right, we're grateful for your time, Mr. Frank Anadon, Majority Chief Whip. Away from that, government has revealed measures to deal with its chronic borrowing in the wake of its escalating debt crisis. Following recent domestic restructuring and ongoing negotiations with external creditors, the Ministry of Finance's plans to tackle the issue includes broadening the tax base through expanded and reviewed tax policies, as well as reactivating sinking funds to better manage debt repayments. For the first time, Deputy Minister of Finance in charge of Revenue, Dr. Alex Ampabing, openly discussed these measures to provide a clear roadmap out of the crisis in an interview with Raymond Akwa on Upfront.
We want to have a debt ceiling. Yes, we want to have a debt ceiling. So, as part of fiscal rules, we want to have, in fact, Minister even signaled in the mid-year budget to restore the 5% fiscal rule. Now, we also want to have a very strong fiscal council. And this is something the minister has already worked on, and I think is going to cabinet very soon. That we want an independent fiscal council, a council that will be able to bite, as Prof put it, a council that will be able to advise, but crucially be able to shoulder all the workload. Because if you haven't just about 4 or 5 people as we have now, as a fiscal advisory council, their role will be different than when you have an independent fiscal council, like we have the Congressional Budget Office.
I get you. So this independence will not be appointed by government?
I don't think I'm the one in charge of recruitment.
No, I'm asking, because you say you want an independent, and forgive me, but I've reviewed that structure.
Yeah.
One of our difficulties is that we end up having appointees there who are beholden to government, and so are not as critical as many would say, or may not have the powers to bite. So when you say we have an independent one, what level of independence are we going for?
I think that these are proposals yet to be decided.
Oh, it's not been fashioned out yet.
On cabinet, and therefore I won't be able to. But one thing I can assure you is that one is going to have a team of competent individuals, people that are able to stand with all pressures, and the key we are putting is their independence.
Even though the measures have received applause from some quarters, economist and professor of finance at the University of Ghana Business School wants government to be intentional about exercising a lean administration and checking spending.
Whilst government is making a lot of plans about increasing our revenue to GDP ratio, and we applaud that, very little is being done and demanded from citizens about expenditure efficiency, the overhaul of procurement. This is where the issue is. If you examine the data carefully, you realize that even though historically our tax revenue to GDP ratio has been low, it has not constrained government from spending the way they have to spend. And government spending is what is critical to stimulate growth. So government has spent as much as our peers. We have spent as much as even Singapore as a percentage of GDP, Malaysia, and the rest of them, and yet we have not derived the development outcome, both in quality and quantity, compared to these countries. The reason is because there's so much inefficiency in our expenditure.
And you had a professor of finance at the University of Ghana Business School, Professor Godfred Bopping. You're still listening to the Midday News here on Joe 99.7 FM. We'll take a break. We'll be back with sports. And later, the Ghana Chamber of Construction punches holes into Dr. Bamia's fresh commitment to pump 3% of Ghana's GDP into the private sector towards infrastructural development.
Currently, the funding gap is about $12 billion. So it's not something that we can continue to put on government budget and still have that optimal level of road construction.
when budgets are tight and money difficult to come by. You want to be sure you get the best value for your money. These are not times to be spending money fixing expensive engine problems because of cheap fuel and lubricants. Drive to a petrol source station today and buy your quality fuel and lubricants, and rest assured of fuel that lasts long and lubricants that prevent expensive engine problems. Hear the sound. Petrosol, clean fuel in full quantity.
The luckiest. Star 712 hash. Luck is everywhere. For everyone, yeah.
Here's to the friends who dialed star 712 hash and found no regrets. To the investors who struck gold. To the health workers who diagnosed luck with precision. To the tough guy who couldn't hold back his tears. To the passionate fan who couldn't contain his joy. To the seamstress who turned her hard-earned stitches into a bundle of happiness. And now, here's to you. Your next big win is right here.
Luck is everywhere. For everyone.
Dial star 712 hash. Now join in the luckiest winning celebration. Every 1st July 2024. Over dial star 712 hash. Now I can to take it through as a group, individual, and now even as a community. Now win Nistika Kessie. Prizes are Kessie in the community draw or go for the grand draw on the 30th of November 2024. Unlock your luck with star 712 hash. Now join in the winning streak now.
The luckiest. Star 712 hash. Luck is everywhere. For everyone, yeah. The luckiest.
Yeah, welcome back to the Midday News. We have sports with Achu.
Well, Ghana's men's relay team have been disqualified from the ongoing Paris 2024 Olympic Games. The team made up of Abdulrashid Saminu, Benjamin Azamati, Ibrahim Fuseni, and Joseph Polamo ran a time of 38.62 seconds in Heat 2 of the men's semi-final, but have been disqualified. Here are Joseph Polamo and Abdulrashid Saminu speaking to Joy Sports, Fentio Tahiru.
The stadium was loud, obviously, but instead of using it as an advantage, I think it kind of broke us in some way. Not hearing the call and stuff like that. But we did our best. We did our best, and hopefully we do better next time. We weren't nervous. It was just too loud to the extent that even if you shout hand, you might not hear.
I think the first call I missed the hand, so I'll bring it back again. Yeah, as he said, there's no excuse. We did our best, but it is what it is. This is the results. We got DQ, so next time we just make sure we correct the mistakes, then come back again.
Well, you heard first from Joseph Polamo, the man who ran the anchor leg, and Abdul Rashid Saminu.
Thank you so much, Achu. Now, the Ghana Chamber of Construction is questioning the significance of Dr. Bawumia's fresh promise to pump 3% of Ghana's GDP into the infrastructural development when several contractors are owed billions of cedis. Chief Executive of the Ghana construction industry, Emmanuel Cherry, lamented that the local industry is on the verge of collapse due to the debts owed them by government and implored the Vice President to rather channel this into ensuring those debts are paid.
We have worked, and then you are indebted to us. We are calling for measures to clear those outstanding. However, you have come with a different proposal that this is the approach you are going to adopt. You are tapping into the private sector, which is coming back to us again. Now we are asking you,
can I help you here?
The modalities. Number two, now, if you are telling us that you are going to set aside 3% of GDP in doing this, which sectors are going to, how are those particular money going to, at least, what are the gestation periods and what have, all of these things must come to the table for discussion. We shouldn't just throw it out there to the public domain in the blanket statement. No.
Okay.
We must interrogate the issues one after the other.
The Ghana Water Company Limited has expressed concern over the increasing theft of water meters in the Ashanti region following a recent incident in the Swami municipality. 2 individuals believed to be scrap dealers were apprehended by the Swami District Police after residents suspecting them of stealing water meters from the neighborhood gave them a chase and caught them. There's more on this report.
The case adds to the average of 65 cases of meter thievery recorded monthly in the region. Ebenezer Padina is a public relations officer officer of the Ghana Water Limited, Ashanti.
New SWAME, unit committee members, and some voluntary groups were able to apprehend 2 gentlemen, which they were suspected that, looking at their demeanor and the way they were gallivanting about, they were suspecting that these people would be up to something. So they gave them a chase, and when they caught them, they actually went through a sack they were holding. And it came out that, yes, these guys were stealing customer meters. They were 3, but 1 got away.
Management of the Ghana Water Limited says the growing cases are adversely impacting the financials and technical operations of the company as they must replace the stolen meters freely.
And you heard that from the Ashanti region, and it's time for M&J. Jackie, what's trending?
Well, Essie, the Airbus scandal is trending.
It's on fire on
Yes,
Twitter,
people have been sharing their opinions on it. And Brakojo on X says that he wants to find out if the OSP, they are now like clearing agents, because it looks like they are saying that they've cleared John Mahama and his brother. So people are asking, are they clearing agents? So
but if there's no evidence against them of
they want to find out
that. Anyway.
Well, yeah, so people have been talking about it, saying that truth has prevailed and all that. But then Jamaica is trending. You know, the men failed to qualify for the 4x100 final, and that's the first time in 20 years. Yes. And people are saying that this year's Olympic, it looks like the Jamaicans didn't really perform well. So people have been sharing their thoughts on it. Trouble for the Jamaican guys.
Unfortunately. Thank you so much, Jackie. And that's how we end the bulletin here on Joy 99.7 FM. You've been hearing from the special prosecutor, naming former President John Dramani Mahama as government official 1 in the controversial Airbus scandal, and later exonerating him from any wrongdoing. I am Maame Nyamekye Thompson. Up next is Living Word with Pastor Mensa Otabil.